Go on with it, go on with it. Blessings all for my life, man. My thank God for the journey, the earnings, and just for the plus. Gratitude is a must. Blessings fall by my right hand.
It may seem hard to believe that a spinster wallflower such as myself should be at the centre of the Ton's newest scandal. It would be peculiar if Whistledown were not to pen anything about it, would it not? I suppose if you wanted to hear more, you could ask Mr. Bridgerton yourself.
Okay. Hi, guys. It is your favorite mystic, TheSirenSayz, and welcome back to my channel where I speak about movie, TV, and very soon to come books. I'm starting to reread my favorite book, in honor of Bridgerton. I might as well just get that in there. I'm reading my favorite book, and I'm going to make a series of videos just on the first book, just to get you guys a little more interested in it, to see if you would even like to read it. It's one of those books that, if you don't want to pay for it, you can kind of find a free PDF version online. But I would suggest, you spend a little bit of cash, just a little bit. But we'll talk about that later. Bridgerton, I don't know how long this video is going to be. I spent time pausing during watching this because it made me want to pause and say some things. And I wanted to start the way I started the last video that none of you watched. LOL. Dearest viewer, I've come here today to bequeath upon you another video. But I ain't got time for the merriment because I'm not happy. And this is why in my last Bridgerton video, I spoke about how I did not like the direction of him not knowing she was Lady Whistledown. And it wasn't just because of the obvious, right? There were other things involved in why I wasn't happy about this that I didn't even consider, but it started happening and I'm like, this is some of the fallout of them deciding to make that decision instead of the book decision. And now it has me wondering if I should just listen to the book on audio or read the book, because I might have preferred it. Maybe. Number one, we all know that the books tend to be more salacious than the show. So if you wanted more woohoo, sexy time coitus, you should probably read the books because they're allowed to do a little bit more with that in the books than they are the Netflix show. Did I like certain aspects of this season? Yes, I will probably get into them first and then get into my issues later. The last video, even though the audio wasn't good, my editing was very nice. I did a lot, putting in little character pieces before my thoughts. But I just don't like this season enough to continue with it. So we're just going to have one picture and I'm just going to talk and y'all are just going to deal with it. I'm so sorry to be a little rude, but I feel like Netflix disrespected me with this season. And for those of you guys who are Penelope fans, as am I, and for those of you who are like, well, it's just for the big girls, whatever part of the scale that you fell on with regards to wanting this season to come out and being excited, I don't know, but I just feel like we were all, whatever side we fall on, we were all disrespected, slighted by this ending. But let me just get into a little bit of a disclaimer. These are my opinions and my opinions alone. If you agree, great. If you don't, also great. Everybody's different. As this show loved, that was the whole theme of this season. We're all different in some way. Oh my God, we're gonna get into it, okay? If you have your opinions, please put them down below. Just be polite. I'm not going to be rude here. I'm just going to say that I didn't appreciate some of this stuff and I'm going to find the best ways to say them that I can. So let's just get started with what I did like. My favorite moment of the scene was the only scene that brought me near tears. I didn't cry, but I was close, right? Lady Danbury and Lady Bridgerton having that moment. Lady Danbury letting go of what happened with her brother and sort of being like, look, I know it's not my place, but I'm not going to abandon you if you start seeing my brother. I give you my pseudo blessing, I guess, even though that's not really my place. I give it, do what you want to do with him. And then I was kind of shook. I didn't think we was going to have this conversation, but we did. She was like, look, you don't need to ask for my permission because I didn't ask for yours. And I was like, oh wait, what? You're gonna tell her what you did with her? And of course she was, it was a very innuendo filled conversation. So she was trying to be direct, like, oh, so right? And Violet was like, all I'm gonna say is my dad was a good man and you are a good friend. Meaning you're both good people, so even if it shocked me and maybe bothered me a little bit, it didn't last, and you were both really good people. And after what you told me about your marriage, I could understand how you would have wanted somebody kinder, or how you would have at least needed a better experience so that you could come out of life not being jaded towards men. And I'm glad that my father was able to do that for you. Now, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not saying that's all that she thought, but the innuendo of it was towards both of them. Do what you do. I trust you. Do what you do. I like you. Whatever happened, I guess it was necessary. That's it. And I really appreciate it. And I was like close to tears when they panned to the crown, the little paper crown. I was like, oh my God. Oh my gosh. It was really cute. I love that scene. I like the mirror scene that y'all was talking about. I'm sure there must have been more to it in the books, but I liked it. It's kind of sad that we're still having the trope of the big girl who doesn't like herself, and so the mirror scene is really just him being like, hey, you're beautiful, I love your body. But I still liked it though. I mean, I'm just saying that I do wish that, society had moved on further from this, but this is a period piece, so in order to be real, we have to add that in, because in reality, unless she's black, okay, her being thick is not necessarily a good thing unless you're already married and you're pregnant. You know what I mean? So she's not black. This is white society. So we understand. And I know you're going to say it's not white society. You know what I mean? The Eurocentric stuff that still is pervasive even in Bridgerton society. So I did like the scene. I didn't really love the whole scene of them in their future home, but I'll get into that later. I liked Eloise this season. I did. She didn't annoy me. I understood everything that was going on, and I appreciate her growth. I really do. I really do. It was great. I like Lord Kilmartin. That I'll leave that in the positives. I like Lord Kilmartin. It took me a second. I didn't really care for him, and it wasn't necessarily only about his countenance. I appreciated especially his wedding toast. It was very thoughtful, and that's what I was trying to explain in my last video. I like him and Francesca. We're similar, the introverted experience, but in love form. I like that, but I was hoping that they weren't so caught up in their need for silence because they're always in noise, that their whole romance would be silent. I wanted to see what they were thinking, and they decided to give me that this season. So I do appreciate that, and I liked them better for it. See, when I get what I want, to a certain degree, I can be satisfied, period. I'm not going to bring up the Michaela thing until later because it's not in positives. Anyways, just to move on and continue really quickly. I appreciate that Lord Mondridge got rid of the bar because Sir is just not necessary anymore. And I know before people come and say, but he did this, but he did that. Yeah. You worked so you could feel as a sort of equal amongst the tenants. Now you are equal to them and dang near richer than a lot of them. Now, I know in my last video I said, what if you could pseudo keep it in your name, let like the second or third son work it. I don't know how the ton works, so I cannot say hither or thither. But what I will say, right, is that if he does let it go, don't see it as a death. It's not a death. It is you moving on to society in the way that you absolutely need to. Okay? All right. What else did I like about this season? what I will say about this season as a whole, I guess, um, I I expected more. I did like the Featheringtons. Prudence's weird, unexplained, uh, waving the white flag towards Penelope. It was interesting, and I feel like if we didn't have so many unnecessary characters, we would have focused more on them, at least enough for me to see where Prudence's change of heart came from, because Prudence wasn't even the one who got the tongue lashings that Mama Featherington got. So it's like, where did this change come from? Just because Mama Feathering lightly suggested that you should be nicer to Penelope, then all of a sudden you thought about it for 5 seconds. Like, I don't even understand where you being nicer came from, but it's okay. Shout out to Philippa's husband for always being the nice one. I think that needs to be addressed. He was always nice. He was never the mean one. He's ditzy, but he's a himbo. It's fine, right? Shout out to Hyacinth. She was enjoyable. And Gregory is also very nice. Shout out to Francesca and everybody in the Bridgerton house for loving, like, Penelope, yay. We love that. We love that very much. Now everything that I didn't like, so many. Lady Tilly and that whole thruple situation and her falling for him or realizing that she was falling for him as the thruple just started being a thing. Ma'am, please. You're back in the old days, so we'll give you a pass that you had no idea. But girl, if you are interested in somebody, don't ever open up the door like that. Somebody's gonna get hurt. And it almost can be said that it can stand to reason that it's more than likely going to be the woman in the situation getting hurt. This is not to say that, you can't do what you want, but it was already quite obvious that the other man was just like, he wasn't even like, he just does whatever he wants. I don't really appreciate it because now Anthony is visionless, directionless. He doesn't even have hobbies anymore. And now he's like, well, you taught me how to be free. I'm like, sir, what are you talking about? You've been more of a rake than any other person in this show. I've seen you in so many different cooches. What, are we supposed to believe that you're not a rake because you liked Madame Delacroix for a few episodes? That ended swiftly. You've been in cooch after cooch after cooch, running away from mamas and now sleeping with a few. What are we supposed to do with that, right? Allegedly next season is his season, and I'm scared. Is he supposed to give up his rakish, free-thinking Aladdin ways for some girl? And to make it worse, his girl might be a woman of noir complexion, which at first excited me, but as they kept shoving the Lady Tilbury scenes in my face, I was like, you know what? He's becoming a little more unlikable for me, which is crazy because to me, he was the most attractive Bridgerton boy. In my personal opinion, just the way he looks, he was the most attractive one. And so I was kind of like, okay, let me see his season. And then when I saw that his lover may be, well, the one he's going to end up with may be noir, I was even more excited. I was like, oh yes, a girl of my hue gets the best looking Bridgerton, period. But now that you guys are just like reducing him to a rake that needs to be reformed, what do you expect Miss Cindy to do? I'm just calling her Cindy as a call out because I've heard lots of people say that season is pretty much Cinderella. So what do you expect Cinderella to do for Benedict? Change his ways? Like this? Like, oh my god. It's okay though. But I don't even know if I want to continue. And let me explain why I might not want to continue with this show. The Michaela thing, bro. The whole time I was looking at John, I was just like, he's not cute enough for me. But I like his countenance. I think he's a great person, but he's not going to be here long. Let us wait for the next person, right? Then, all of a sudden, I'm seeing rumors that there's a Michaela because y'all love to spoil everything. Y'all couldn't let the day pass before you spoiled everything? Okay. So I was waiting and then I saw Michaela and I'm like, wow, she's gorgeous. She is gorgeous. But why? Why? What is the point of this? This is a period piece. Now, I know there are lots of period pieces. There's like I think it's the Emily Dickinson show or something like. There are other period pieces where they add in LGBTQIA storylines, right? But for me, right, I feel like if you're going to do that, it should have been more obvious from season 1. Don't just shove it in there now. And it makes me weirded out for Francesca in terms of like just being annoyed for me. Why is it that the neurodivergent person also has to be bi? And here's why I'm saying that, right? It's almost like once you are a minority in any type of way, all intersectionalities have to be pushed and forced in. We can't just be 3 deep identities and have the story focus on those 3 deep things. Francesca is an introverted pianist who might have Asperger's or autism. 3 very deep separate identities: the music, the neurodivergence, and the antisocial tendencies. We can't dive into any of those because in the next season, after Lord Kilmartin passes, spoiler alert, she just might like girls. Why? Why couldn't it be somebody else? Why can't it be Eloise? Eloise has been pink flag coded from the first season, but I don't hear any rumors of her going over to that side. Instead, you have to make it the quiet girl. I just feel like we should allow people to live certain lives and give it enough depth that you don't feel like you have to throw in every quirky thing in there. Like, oh, let's make her even quirkier, even more different. Y'all were barely handling the 3 eccentricities that she had already. I don't know if you're going to be able to make it deeper with that little half a love triangle that you're trying to spout off between her, John, and Michaela. I just always feel like if you're going to focus on something like this, you need to give it more time. And I don't feel like they're ever going to have enough time to focus on it. I think it's going to be done poorly. And I know people are already upset about it for, I guess some people would say, the wrong reasons. But hey, I think even though I've never read the books, I can understand why people would have liked her books from what I've heard. The depth of her falling for 2 people in a similar family that have similar countenances but are different. Right? The difficulty of that, even like from what I'm hearing, it really should have always been Michael, but she met John first. You know what I mean? That is a very deep storyline that now we're not really going to get to explore all the way, because now we're going to have to fight the ton, right, for Francesca to get with Michael. That makes sense to anybody? It's the same way y'all kept crooning about how Benedict is obviously bi, right? And I thought I had a Mandela effect because I could have sworn we already had that one of those Lady Tilly bedroom scenes in season 1. I could have sworn I already saw Benedict being bi in season 1, but apparently it was the Mandela effect because we didn't really see it. It was just heavily alluded to. It's still the ton, you know. You still just can't come out and be like, oh, I did this. No, you have to hide it. Is Francesca just gonna like be a widower and then like hide her relationship with Michael? I'm calling it Michael on purpose because I'm annoyed. But Michaela, is that what's gonna happen here? Am I supposed to watch that? I'm not watching that. The whole hiding thing annoys me, and y'all know that. I don't care. It's not interesting. They're not making it interesting. So I'm just gonna move on. One thing that has to do with Francesca, again, just to go back to her, but not really everything about her. I think it was very interesting that it seemed, right, that they were trying to show that Lady Violet had a bias. And that bias being that she wanted love to look a certain way on all of her daughters. And I didn't really understand, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm like, So she thinks that Francesca needed to be with somebody who would have brought her out of her shell. It's too comfortable. She doesn't understand it. It's not passionate enough for her. I think that was very interesting. And if we didn't have the barrage of side characters from Sesame Street, I would have liked to have delved into that more. I would have liked to delve into that a lot more. I feel like that was an interesting plot point. Very interesting. That was overlooked and does not get looked into enough in this particular way. Yes, we've had the storylines of, oh, the introverted person and how they need to be pushed out into society. Even nowadays, we've had storylines of that like, right? But what I wanted to discuss was how her mother, as accepting as she is, low-key wanted her daughter to change so that she could feel better. You know, like, oh, we love you, but maybe you just need some dick. You know, you just need the right man to bring you out your shell. I think it's very interesting that as accepting as Lady Bridgerton is, there was still that level of bias there. And of course, it just jumped over, and that's the thing with a show like Bridgerton. It's why some people are like, why do some people not like it? This is why. The thing that they do is looked at two different ways, and people on either side can't see it, right? So they broach deep topics, like they start the conversation, they throw a little sentence or phrase out there, and some people love it. They're, oh my God, it's so deep. We saw a guy in a wheelchair for 2 minutes tops. That's so great. Oh, we got to see some girls doing sign languages. They just give you the little pebbles. Oh, look at the depth of Violet and Francesca, little pebbles, right? But they don't dive into it. They don't make it a point of conversation. Instead, we get Tilly. We get Cressida. Oh, don't let me get into Cressida right now. We get Cressida. We get the Mondridges. And before y'all say, I am of noir complexion, but that particular storyline was already done with in Queen Charlotte. So even if they were a little bit more of a thing, and I figure that part of the reason why they're being brought up is because of Hyacinth and little Baron Kent there. There was something there. If that's what it's for, fine. But until that is confirmed, it's kind of useless. It's kind of useless, okay? Especially since Lord Mondridge still doesn't really have any personality, apart from the fact that I used to fight and I owned a club. It's just useless. We had all of these little useless storylines. And the people and things that did matter, we just got crumbs. And so there's another side of the coin, right? That see the crumbs, see them as crumbs and get upset. That's the two halves of Bridger viewership. They both watch it. They both enjoy it to a certain extent, but one enjoys it more, and it's because they take the crumbs like they were fleshed out. But guys, they're not being fleshed out. They're being thrown in there so you can say it's there. Like Anthony, right? Kate not really wanting children as quick as Anthony. Very deep subject. We don't get to have that conversation really. It's just sprinkled in there. Kate really wanting the responsibility of being a hostess and a party thrower and a mother, because that's what she's always wanted. But she got so used to the other life, the Lady Danbury, Eloise kind of life, where she can do whatever she wants without a man, that now she's starting to miss it a little bit. And now her sister is starting to be a little bit more free and more adventurous. And she's a little bit like, wow, I'm so happy for her. I miss that. We don't really get to dive into that. It's just sprinkled in there. Just sprinkled. I feel like instead of running around with the other people that I mentioned, we could have stuck to the Bridgertons and the Featheringtons and dove into that. Right? Or at least have heard about Lady Tilly and the Mondridges and all of that. Heard about it at the little party. Like, oh, update with them. Gossip. 5 seconds, move on. I don't need to know what Lady Tilly's house looks like. I don't. And let's get into Cressida. I thought there was a purpose. I was giving them flowers in my last video for the way that they went about Cressida's nonsense. And then what did you do at the end? You made her become the villain again, right? You gave her mother a little bit of depth just to throw it away. And then you made her leave the country after losing Eloise. What was the point of that? What was the point of her entire character? It was just not needed. It was not needed. We got so many scenes of her that we could have been spending more time on Colin, his thought process, everything. Penelope, Francesca, like all the other things that matter more than Cressida Cowper. Cressida Cowper's storyline is a very good example of what I was just talking about, the needlessness of these side characters. And before, I was giving the whole needless side character plot, I was giving it more kudos. But this second half just showed that, you know what, I know what everybody's talking about now. When they're complaining about this, I agree with them. Yeah. Y'all played in our faces with all these side characters. Because you don't respect Penelope and Penelope's story. You don't. And that just showed it. I'm so sorry. So, for me, this will be the last video I'm going to post on this. I don't really care anymore. I'm sure I have more thoughts. I had a lot of thoughts as I was watching it, but I just don't care anymore. I feel gypped. Why'd you make us wait for it? You want to know why? Because they knew that the second half would have kept people upset, whereas the first half irritated a few. And so they thought, let's just split it up. So, you know, they can feel a little bit more positive about it on rewatch and then watch the second half and, you know, just not care by the end. I see you. I see you, Netflix. I see you. But let me say, right? For those of you who still love this show, right? I understand. We have been stifled with romance content, real romance. I love you. Let's be together. You love me for who I am. We have things in common. We don't have anything in common. We're working it out. We're going through it. Stifled. And so when there's one that's even decent, we're going to put it up there on a pedestal. So if you love this season, don't feel judged by me. I'm that girl that watches a lot of old romance stuff, old shows in general. Old meaning not put out within the last 10 to 15 years, right? So it's really not that old, just giving you a little bit of a, you know, breakdown of the timeline. And I watch all those things again so I can remember what those things look like. And I'm getting back into reading just so I can remember what all of those things feel like. What it feels like, why I love Queen Charlotte so much. It is the epitome of a good period piece. I'm so sorry. Everything about it was good. I know there were some people who didn't care for certain characters in Queen Charlotte, but come on. If we're going to go by comparison, it was good. Now, what is my ranking for the seasons? Queen Charlotte is the best. Season 2 would have been my favorite, but this ending has soured it. And so now I'm just putting it with the rest of Bridgerton and saying that Bridgerton still does not even hold a candle, near it be lit, to Queen Charlotte. They're just like in two completely separate universes. And the only things I actually enjoyed had to do with nods to Queen Charlotte. Like that whole conversation between Violet and Lady Danbury. That was just a nod to their younger selves, a nod to Queen Charlotte, a nod to the conversations that they even had. I'd grown up in Queen Charlotte. So even the parts that I enjoyed the most, that made me feel like I would have cried, came from the murmurs, the echoes, the whispers of show before. That shows you guys how good Queen Charlotte was. And the best scenes in this show are a reference to unfinished business in Queen Charlotte. Sorry, I can't help y'all there. I can't help you. I really can't. And I almost got to mention this. I still don't really love Mr. Anderson. Violet can do whatever she wants. I'm not her mother. But I understand why Lady Danbury does not like her. And before I see the whole heap of comments and essays that are going to be put out on this platform and others about how, you know, he was a little boy, he didn't understand. I don't know how much older she was. Maybe 3, 4 years, maybe 5. But she understood so badly how terrible her life was about to become that she was willing to run away. And he kept saying how much he respected her and feared her. But he decided to stop her from fleeing. That doesn't make any sense to me. Do I believe that he feared her? Yes, because that's what the writers are sticking with. But personally, no. Absolutely not. And of course, now that he's older, when she's telling him that that's why she hates him, he understands fully. And I'm sure they've never had a conversation about her husband. So how come you understand now why she hates you and you didn't understand then? Did you see something growing up? Did you see her husband one day speaking to her? He saw something now that gave him an understanding that he did not have when he was 10. Am I going to say he was 10 years old? I've been 10 years old. If I saw somebody running away from a young marriage, I wouldn't tell on them. Now, I know you're like, well, you have the blessing of being alive in a modern time. Maybe you saw a show or a documentary or something, or you had your own parents' marriage to mirror something better. Perhaps. But look, if you like Mr. Anderson, you can. I don't got to. And it's fine that she let it go. I don't really mind that she let it go. But what's going to bother me is the fact that y'all are going to take his excuses as like a good excuse. It's an excuse, and it's a valid excuse, but it's not a good excuse in my opinion. It's like if a kid accidentally kills an animal somehow. Okay, valid, but not good. That's all I got to say about that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. All right, you enjoy the rest of your day as it were. Dearest gentle viewer, we're about to get on to better things, which unfortunately means stuff like sisters and stuff like my books. Anyways, goodbye, my sires. Susan!